reclaiming my microphone. Well, thank you, Jody. And first, let me say congratulations to you, my friend. I am thrilled for you personally. I just want to say, I'm sure we're going to have intense debates in here and different principled views in terms of the role of government, and diagnosing what our challenges may be and what the solutions to them may be. But we should take a moment and just reflect how fortunate each of us are to be elected as members of Congress and to serve on the Budget Committee. Just look around at the portraits in this room and some of the people who have been known both in front of us and behind us, who've made a real contribution in American history over the course of the last 4 to 5 decades. And it says something about America that the son of a tractor salesman from West Texas can rise to become chairman of such an important committee. So congratulations, Jody. Let me also say that something that Jody and I Chairman and I have talked about previously, a couple things kind of stylistically. The first is, I'll just speak for myself. I have served on committees in which the political food fight was all over the place and it was rampant. Now, look, I don't back down from a fight. I am, after all, a Philly sports fan. But that said, when the partisanship is at an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it just looks ugly to the American people. I really don't think either side is winning, by the way, when that happens. And nothing actually is being achieved. I have also served on committees, by the way, and I would cite 2 of them: Foreign Affairs, when I first came here, and most recently with Jody on Ways and Means, in which the chair and ranking member respectively set a tone that really was followed in the committee. I give credit, they're both no longer in Congress now, Ed Royce and Elliot Engel. When they were chair and ranking member of Foreign Affairs, they set a tone of mutual respect and collegiality that absolutely influenced the culture of that committee and made it a very pleasant place to show up and do constructive work. That is my sincere goal, and I believe we will be able to achieve it. And yeah, look, we have principled disagreements. That's fine. That's the way our system was set up in my district, by the way, by Mr. Madison and Hamilton and others of our founders. That's legitimate. But when it engages into the nonsense, that's where a line is crossed. And I hope and believe that we will set a tone that is such that people will look at this committee in a way when we're done that perhaps is let's just say that we can raise the bar to the highest level possible. I also just want to say, in terms of addressing the chair's comments on debt, I get where he's coming from. And I'm an intellectually curious person, open-minded, and I understand how the $31 trillion figure can be scary to folks. That sounds like a big number. Heck, to me, $1 million sounds like a big number. But I also point out there have been different points in recent American history where I heard a lot of the same rhetoric. I think back to the early 1990s. 1990, 1991, there were projections on an unsustainable deficit, an unsustainable debt. It was doom and gloom all over the place. By the late 90s, in part because of decisions that were made on a bipartisan basis by presidents of both parties, and Congress is controlled by both parties, but also in large part due to remarkable economic growth. The debate by the end of that decade was not, oh my God, how are we going to be able to sustain this deficit? The debate was actually whether or not the full deficit should be paid off and what we were going to do with all these surpluses. So let's be mindful of what Mark Twain once said, that predictions are hard to make, especially about the future. Now, I also want to make a point about the last couple of years. I personally, and I think members on this side of the aisle, will not be shy about defending the remarkable economic record of the last 2 years. and something as Americans we should all be proud of. No country on earth has come out of the pandemic economically stronger than the United States of America. That's not subjective. When you're looking in terms of GDP growth, record job growth, which has produced an unemployment rate at its lowest level since 1969, when you also look at it even in terms of the very difficult issue of inflation, we know that coming out of the pandemic, every country on earth has had to deal with runaway inflation. Well, it turns out over the last 6 months, inflation has dropped more in the United States than all of our peer countries. We're seeing countries in the Eurozone, especially in the UK. Don't worry, there is no weather alert for the Washington, D.C. area. We're looking pretty good, I think. So before I introduce my members, I would just point out this, that when you look at where the United States economy is now versus all of our peer countries, you would rather be the United States than any other country. That did not happen by accident. Now, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go ahead and likewise introduce the Democratic members. And by the way, I'm happy to report to you that we had more members seeking to be on the committee than there were spots available. And I think that is a great sign. First, we have two new members. We mostly have returning members. We have two new members to the committee, Representative Becca Ballant of Vermont, as well as Representative David Trone of nearby Maryland. In terms of returning members, we have Brian Higgins of Buffalo, New York, Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, Dan Kildee, I think he's from Flint, Michigan. I can't recall. He might mention that once or twice. Scott Peters of California, Barbara Lee of California, Lloyd Doggett of Texas, Jennifer Wexton of Virginia, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, Bobby Scott of Virginia, and last but certainly not least, Jimmy Panetta of California. It's an honor to be serving with you. Very excited to have you on the committee. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.